Dann freue ich mich, euch alle sehr herzlich zu Hirne, hacken, der Hackback Edition begrüßen zu dürfen. Heute unsere zwei Vortragenden, Linus Neumann und Kai Biermann, beides bekannte Gesichter hier. Linus, bekannt als IT-Security Consultant und
Linus is an IT consultant and he has the dubious honor of having dealt with various ransom gangs or having to negotiate with them. Kai Biermann is an investigative journalist and he has discovered members of the Conti ransomware gang, and they are going to tell us something about how, from a game theoretic point of view, these negotiations with ransomware gangs and hackers can be done and what the interesting strategies are. Please give them a very warm applause to Linus and Kai.
Hi, Congress. It's an absolute honor to be here today. This is Linus, who has just been introduced to you. He likes to ride horses, hacking and swimming. He's often called if a company gets cybered, and this is why he's here. This is Kai. He has no hobbies that he wants to have publicly known about. And he likes to call if someone gets cybered because, yeah, he's working with these topics. If my phone rings, my first sentence is always, this sentence is always, help, 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 you have to help me immediately. And to start the topic, I want to talk about a case that is very recent. A hacker received an email, or got an email from their own domain. They've been hired to hack the database, and my employer pays too little. And this is why I'm now telling you what I found out. So, not very convincing. They immediately went on with, this is your data, I'm the criminal, I've hacked you, but please be cool, don't get emotional. Just imagine, it would be so much worse if I went public with that. So, these were blackmailers. And they then went on with what they want. I want 2,000 euros. We went on to fix the SQL injection, and if they would have wanted more, we probably would have taken them more seriously, but we didn't really respond, which led to them writing us again, I have to get back to my employer in 24 hours, please reply now, I am not bluffing. So we went on to have a tea, they replied us again, you get 24 more hours, but then I will go to the person who contracted me to do this. So we continued to do nothing. They replied again, you have another 24 hours, but then, for real, then I will go and go to the person who paid me. So the company that has been hacked then was a little bit, shaken up. What if they have more? But we were able to convince them that if they would have more, they would have wanted more money. But we wonder, like, who is that person who writes these long, elaborate blackmailing messages? So we went on with two hypotheses. First, a high schooler sitting at home in his parents' basement, hacking a little bit. For such a person, 2,000 euros is a lot of money. Second hypothesis, someone with ChatGPT from India, also for them, 2,000 euros, a lot of money. So we went on to reply, you should not host your servers in the EU. Because here the police is working together. And also, you should not pay your domain with your credit card.
Und wenn du deinen SQL-Map-Angriffe machst, so versuch das doch mal über Tor wenigstens statt von deinem anderen V-Server.
If you start hacking someone and attacking someone, do it via Tor server.
Und dann haben wir gesagt, pass auf.
They did not reply. Then we went on with, in 24 hours, we will go to the criminal police.
Die Datenschutzmeldung haben wir ohnehin schon gemacht. Was soll schon noch kommen? Ja?
So we anyhow were in contact with them already, so not much were going to happen. Then we made them an offer. If you delete your data, we will give you a McDonald's voucher for 100 euros. Then they replied with, my offshore servers are secure. What offshore servers? What encryption? They continued with, I want 2,000 euros and you have 24 hours.
So we were thinking, okay, what will we do? We kept on waiting. Then we put Cloudflare between the website and the internet, and that was it. Because, of course, there were two reasons for not paying. The demand was way too low. That person would have come back, wanted more, and nothing else happened. But, of course, not all these exchanges, if you are with a confused individual dealing with a confused individual, then it's not always so easy. This is one of them. An individual culprit, probably we have to say, because he is in front of the courts right now. He's denying the accusation and he hasn't been sentenced or convicted yet. No, hasn't been found guilty yet. So, presumably, he blackmailed a company that runs psychiatry centers, and all the therapeutic reports and files were cybered, copied. All the protocols from therapy sessions, all the diagnoses of many, many people he obtained from those servers, and then said, I want not 2,000 euro, but 40 Bitcoin, which at the time, 2 years ago, was about 280,000 euro, I don't know, 180,000, 280, but the company didn't respond. They had a cup of tea, and then he went on to send the patients an email. He had the data, after all, and said, okay, company's not paying, so I want you to pay 200 euro in Bitcoin so that your therapy files are not going to be published. Who does something like that? Here is a self-description. You might read up on that if you want to. A funny young man, aged 25 by now. He believes he's a huge donor, philanthropist. He said he learned to appreciate nature and its beauty. He was involved in DDoS attacks and an activity called swatting, which is if you send police to someone, which can be very annoying. Back to the case. In Finland, he created quite a stir. This is the interior minister in Finland at the time, who found it a shocking act. And it's an interesting way of putting it, because it's more in the case of a data breach and not hacking. And that gets us to another important point in our talk. The people affected are not always so innocent. The server on which all these therapy files had been stored with about all the patients was, first, a self-built MySQL database, which was openly accessible through the net, was findable via Google, and had a standard password. So kind of the default state after shipping. Who does something like that? This guy does. This is the CEO of that company, Ville Tapio. He was so concerned, so shocked, because his company went bust, and he's still being sued, or the company is. He's not concerned about these many Finnish people having been blackmailed, but about the fact that his company went down. Another fact about the patient data that I found interesting: this was not anonymized and not encrypted. You shouldn't do it like that if you have such sensible data to deal with. And the company also circumvented certain guidelines by the health ministry. But back to our offender, because he wants 40 bitcoins, the company won't pay. So again, we have Kermit drinking tea. And then he had a bright idea. He says, in order to increase the pressure, which is always important for a blackmailer, he wants to raise the pressure and says, if you're not going to pay, I'm going to leak 100 patient files per day until I have my money. The problem was, he did this in a Finnish image board. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. The problem was that he also leaked some of information about the server where he had put it on, such as the internet address, which made it possible for police to follow the trace and find an address and find that someone had paid with their credit card. It gets worse. This wasn't the only lead that he created. Okay, the company won't pay. They're not nice people. This guy traveled a lot. He kind of disappeared. Police had his name, you kind of knew who he was, but he disappeared, went abroad. But he had the not too bright idea to post about his travels on the internet. Again, on this image board, he posted a photo with him at the French coast, leading the sweet life, and kind of spraying this water into his face, this facial spray. So he posted that. And this, at some point, was also posted from one of the servers that were connected to the offense. And this photo was so good that the police were able to take a fingerprint. Finnish police so knew where to look for him in France. And at this point, I would like to tip my hat to Starbuck, because that's exactly what he prophesied at some point. Using a photo by Ursula von der Leyen, then a government minister, I think, or maybe not, but by now the president of the European Commission, thanks to Starbuck. Police have been watching you. Now that we've dealt with a few amateurs that can ruin your company or themselves or both, let's take a brief look at the professionals. And that is a bit annoying for me, because I have been talking about this in many talks for about 7 years now. This is the story of ransomware. Nothing new in any way, but let's just give you a brief history of it. About 2016, this started with Locky. That was the kind of ransomware for private customer businesses. So localhost was encrypted and asked for something in the range of €100. Then WannaCry came about, again, a localhost ransomware, but connected with the Eternal Blue exploit, meaning that it was looking for SMB shares in the local network and infected those as well. So it kind of went a bit further. Then around 2018, Ryuk started to notice that backups are the natural enemy of ransomware, so it focused on that towards Active Directory compromising, taking that over completely, and because most people then connect their backup server to the Active Directory, which is the worst idea that you could possibly have. So destroy the backups first, and then through a group policy, roll out the ransomware to all hosts. That started around 2018, and then 2019, it started with Maze to focus on file shares and also the business model of double extortion, which is that, briefly, I'll explain it later, because I want to go back to the catastrophic fact that in 2023 we are still talking about this. Since 2019, it's more or less the same pattern, and it's been a business model since 2016. And like in every IT security lifecycle, if you have, you should have detection, you should have recovery, multi-stage approach. Many people perhaps think it's not so good with them, so they have prevention failing, detection failure, but they should at least be able to recover. But what it's really like in practice is this. Prevention fails. And if you don't visualize it graphically, then you get something like this. This is, I think, Black Cat, something that went, a gang that went bust a few weeks ago. So I have a web page as a hidden service in Tor explaining about the demands, the ransom demand. The people that see this kind of web page have this kind of situation. Have you tried paying the ransom? Because that seems to be the only way of recovering your files. If you do that, you have a page like this with some instructions on how to recover those files, and also the attackers are as nice as promising you the complete report how they get in. Okay, of course, as an IT security consultant, this is great, I'm interested. So this is it. This is a standard reply, which you get at the time that the bitcoins are paid. This shows up in the chat at about the same time. This is hard-coded into this web page or website, and which means that these are absolute one-trick ponies. You can imagine how little these are one-trick ponies, and you are their victim. We all know the fact, no backup, no mercy. You can always say that, but not at the time you have an incident.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Learn from my fail.
Learn from my fails. As I just said, we are talking about double extortion, and that works like so. The backup is a problem. Well, okay, we also have a backup, and we will publish your backup. So they're blackmailing you with their data, and at the same time, they're blackmailing with the publication. And what happens? This happens for years. Has happened for years. And somehow Kai writes about it. I talk about it. The German Bundesbahn has had it on their advertisement boards. If you open the newspaper, what are they talking about? Cyber war. How bad would it be if the cyber war started? That would be terrible. Well, it's actually quite boring to write ransomware because it's so predictable. And if just for a second you imagine that everywhere in Germany masked people would run into companies, take the computers and ran out, what would happen in this country? You know, big companies like Metro or Continental or whatever. 100 people went in, and took all their PCs and went out. If that happened 3 times every day, what would happen? We would have cyber war. But you know, nothing happens because the cyber war that everyone is fearing, which is it's a terrible expression, because war is really, you can't compare it with anything that happens on the internet. But if we're afraid of this, then probably we should be thinking that we are fearing the wrong thing, and it's already worse than what we fear. And we need to come to the conclusion that we could have been doing something. And if cyber war ever happens, you know, the attackers will just do the very same that they're already doing. So that is why this talk has one important slide, which I will come to now, and after which we'll come back to the attackers. What you need in this situation when ransomware is at game is a recovery strategy. Your problem isn't that all your data is gone. Your problem is that the data of 2 weeks ago are gone. The long-time archive isn't the problem. The problem is is that the production stands still, and that costs a lot of money. So best practices for your backups is that they are write-only. Users must not be in a situation that they can change the backups. Not even admins should be able to change the backups. Not with the rights that come out of Active Directory. It must be on a separate, isolated network with separate identity management, no Active Directory. If you admin the backup server, you take a separate screen and a separate keyboard and connect them to the computer. Don't administer this from the network. Now, of course, backups are versions so that earlier versions can be recovered. You should check this before you actually need it. How much money could you actually save if you actually found an error? Of course, you check that the backup has happened and is data integrity guarantee. And you do all of this risk-based and with risk management. Most data that you back up, you're not going to need in the situation. So people that say we have everything on tape, you think, well, you know how long it takes to play that data back that is on tape.
And if you understand all this, then you will also understand that people actually consider doing the payments.
Das vergesst ihr am besten wieder ganz schnell. Das war nur, euch hierher zu locken, weil uns Leute immer danach fragen, wie denn so eine Verhandlung läuft.
So if you came here to learn about the negotiations themselves, you better forget everything about this. That was a way to get you into this lecture hall today. So, back to the funny people. We are, by coincidence, both psychologists. We have been psychologists in our previous lives from the same university. So, of course, we are very interested in the psychological effects and backgrounds of the criminals in these cases. Why do they become criminals? Why do they do what they do? So let's start with a very well-known case, that is Maxim Jakubets, a young Russian. I call him the Godfather because he's so famous. So if you look at the car, that is a special Lamborghini. If you are able to read Russian, then have a look at the number plate of the car. That translates to deep. And the whole gang around the Godfather has been driving around with cars with similar license plates. So that guy is actually married to the daughter of a very famous guy in Russia. So he had nothing to fear. So he was not afraid to flaunt what he had. This is him and his friends in front of the Lomonosov University. Nobody cares. Nobody gets in the way. The police is paid off. So those are like the godfathers of ransomware. They call themselves Evil Corp. With their banking Trojan called Zeus, they got around $70 million in ransom payments.
So these people are sought after. FBI would like to have them. And they probably will not be able to have a holiday anywhere else than in the Crimea. The interesting thing about having them here is these are the kind of the grandfathers of the ransomware business models that are plaguing us today. They invented ransomware as a service, RAS. So they stopped doing this themselves. They were renting out the ransomware or selling it. These are these two guys, somewhat more enlarged, nice young men. They started to restrict their criminal abilities to programming and then offering their services in forums. And how do the people look like that use these services? This is one of them. This is the landlord, Daniel Shchukin, who I think wasn't named publicly in this way. This is one of the people that lives by organizing these renting arrangements. Probably, I have to say, he hasn't been convicted. He hasn't left Russia. This is in Antalya, at the Turkish coast, where he is still free, and he is spending time with some friends there. Who is this guy? Another young Russian, has some technical talent, lives the big life, is visible with his wife and his friends, whose food he pays for. He has online casinos, crypto, and other dirty stuff online. And he has rented out REvil, another large ransomware model, and he seems to be living a good life from that. This is him again, both times smiling. His wife is blurred because she is not connected to this. But sadly, he didn't want to talk to us. I don't know why. He tried. I wrote several emails that he didn't reply to. But the interesting thing is, look at his watch, if you can recognize it. This is a Vanguard in crypto, so this clock in itself is about 50 to 70,000 euro, if you like ugly watches like that. And instead of the number 12, there is a QR code. So the company advertises that you can have your Bitcoin wallet engraved here. The public part of it, of course, you have to be able to afford that. Sadly, we were not able to decrypt that. I tried, but we couldn't read that. The FBI was able to. The FBI, not too long ago, extracted $370,000 in December, so this is now in the hands of the FBI. I think the FBI is the largest holder of bitcoins in the world, isn't it? So he himself was not caught, but young Russians that think they are invincible or invulnerable because they either bribe the authorities or are connected to them. They are this kind of small group of the guys in the background, but they are not the large part of the masses here that do the actual work. These guys look different. This is the admin, or rather this is a flat in a rather rundown tower block in Ukraine. Street of the 23rd of August, if you're interested. I'm not going to mention the name, because this guy was never even indicted or even, let alone, convicted. Here is the name that he uses on the internet, Cheap, which we will explain later. This guy was working for EmoChat, another huge family of ransomware products which had thousands of victims worldwide. The German Federal Criminal Police Office called EmoChat one of the most dangerous Trojans worldwide, and the previous head of the German Agency for Internet Security called it the king of malware. But, and this is why we are showing it here, Emotech too made mistakes, because they had a server in Brazil which they left open so that server logs could be extracted, which the authorities did. And using these logs, they went through the whole infrastructure of that group, and they arrived after, well, according to the German Federal Criminal Police Office, they arrived in this flat. So that's why in 2021 you have this police, you have the Ukrainian police at the back there, breaking into this flat and then searching it. So these were all the strings came together. Looks like in my home, doesn't it? Okay, you have some flea market stuff as well, don't you? Yeah, this is this guy's writing desk and the flat of someone who was at the time 47 years old from Ukraine, a system admin for Linux, and he administrates servers for small companies, does it for small money. He did talk to us, he was very nice, and he said that these back-ends had dangerous Trojans, which I didn't know. He wasn't interested, presumably. He administrated 12 EmoChat servers, and his fee was $480 per year. So these giant ransomware business models that work worldwide are based on infrastructure like this. According to police who were in this flat, you can see them here again, a large part of this was from the flea market, years old. And, by the way, can you read Cyrillic? So if you produce stickers like this, I'd like to have one of them. Back to another ransomware gang. I did say that I do have the pleasure of dealing with them every now and then, a lot, mostly because people think I could organize Bitcoin for them. I have no idea why they are thinking that, but somehow it does work. So this is one of these ransomware notes. Looks like you find that on your desktop, and there is a tool hidden service that is named, and at this time it comes with a login, which leads you to a kind of chat from another gang this time. So I took out a screenshot by Black Basta, who say that they want money, and this is the moment that so many people are interested in. I am always asked to describe this kind of situation in my talks, and I always say, I'm never going to describe it without saying how you can protect yourselves from it, because this is not the situation you want to be in. We will publish in 10 days. We have a decryptor. We want 100 million. In this example, I just picked 100 million so you see the kind of orders of magnitude. And of course, you then reply, okay, guy, first of all, you have to prove that you actually have the data. Before that, you play stupid at first, ask a few stupid questions. What is BTC? What is that? Just to kind of relate to them that you are somewhat innocent and stupid. And so then you ask for proof. Of course, here is the list, is a response, an output from a kind of tree command or find or whatever. And they then say, pick 3 files and we'll send you those files. They give you the whole list and you are asked to pick 3 of them, and that way they prove that they have all the files. Here is your file X, Y, and Z. And the good thing is that this list of the files is for free, and you need that in order to assess the damage that a publication would lead to, but also for the GDPR report, to the report of the data breach to the authorities. So that is free. And even if you're not actually intending to pay, it is worth organizing that list, which is a free service, as it were. And then you say, okay, we're just going to reconstruct all this from tapes, but we're actually fine. And then these guys say, oh, just imagine if we released everything. And you respond, well, there's actually nothing really critical involved here. And then they say, we are selling this to your competitors. Another very interesting case, if you have these conversations, the people then say, oh, no, they're going to sell it to the competition. Oh, no, oh, no. And then they say, hang on, I'm going to make you an offer. I'm going to give you your competitors' data. We'll never do that. So you believe that your competitors will accept and for this kind of thing, will pay for that with Bitcoin? Well, you can try. We're not actually going to assume that they are going to give a lot of money for that. But also, you sadly have to say that publicizing these data is not normally constitute a big, huge damage. And this is someone that the founder and CEO of Motor One, Dieter Müller, also knows. Because when Motor One was breached and all customer data did go to the internet, he refused to negotiate with these people and prevent this damage from happening. This guy does not have a lot of high standards for himself and a lot of high standards to the states, because the fact that all these data about people with their stays at the motel is now publicly findable, this is the state's fault, because the state hasn't found a way of doing its work and protecting people from criminals. Of course, it cannot be his own fault. So I did already say this guy doesn't have very high standards regarding himself and very high standards regarding the state. In the pandemic, about 100 million corona support funds. He took these corona support funds from the state, about 100 million, and he gave interviews saying that this was impossible and way too little. And you have to say, Motor One didn't actually have any damage from that being published. And you can see it in this picture. It was in 2021. Accenture was breached by Lockbit. And this was very interesting. This was on the Lockbit blog. There was a countdown. And then all these data were published. That was interesting to look at. But, well, it was a single download. Every file you could download as a single file. It was very hard to sort through, and they were always taken offline again, and then the deadline was extended when they would be released, and somehow they are not, you can't find them anymore. The fact that the attackers publish in this way and not any other is quite clear. At the time they publish everything, they have kind of destroyed everything. No one will then pay anymore. But if they do it in a slice-wise kind of way, then potentially they can continue the blackmail and then can convince the other side to actually pay. Because for them it's an all-or-nothing kind of situation. And publishing all these files means that they have just created a warning example for someone else and not an income of several million for them. And we've often talked about this. This is called, the attackers want to raise the pressure. They do sometimes actually report to the authorities for you, again, just to increase the pressure because that's the only thing they have. And sometimes they actually molest the people that do not want to pay, maybe have someone call them there or try to blackmail them somehow to kind of maximize the damage. So these groups work on increasing the damage to the reputation.
In our example, let's say we're going towards a payment. We say, bro, how can we make sure, how can we trust you? And they say, well, my friend, we're CyberSwan. We have 5 stars on Yelp. And it's important for the mechanics of the negotiation. They need to protect their reputation. If it became known that it doesn't work, then no one would pay them. So it's important that their reputation is being protected. Also, they have the rest of the internet before them. It's unlikely they're going to extort you twice. Well, so you say, the tapes are really slow. How about 25 million? They go, well, we want 100 million and you have 7 days. It's going to be more expensive for that. Okay, so it pressures up. And you go, yeah, bro, in 7 days we're done. You can maybe save 50 million, so you'll get 40. And they say, no, we want 70. This is our last offer. This is only valid for 24 hours. And you go, the longer this takes, the less this is worth. So, because I already am recovering from tapes. So the point is, for the attackers, it's an all-or-nothing situation. They get everything or nothing. Plus, if they publish, that will cost them too. And so you need to actually withstand the pressure. The time pressure they only use because they know that the longer you don't pay, the less probable it gets that you pay. So in this situation, if you have the time, you should play the time. They know the longer it takes, the less probable it is that you will pay. Okay, so 60 million is because this is a special offer, last price. And you go, and this is what the customers don't want. Okay, you go, sorry, let's just end the negotiation. This could have been a win-win situation, but maybe next time. And they go, all right, I'm going to talk to my boss. So you've been talking to the level 1 customer support, and they have very clear limits, and only when they talk to someone else about the deal they can offer, you will know that you're in an area that is interesting to you. Of course, this can be a game. In this case, it wasn't, as you will soon see. And he goes, okay, 50%, this is my very, very last price. And I go, well, how do I know you can actually recover all these files? You should do this at the very end, because that signals you have an interest. Every ransomware gang offers to send, if you send them to files and they decrypt it. So that is a very important step that you need to do. You must do this. You must be sure that they can actually deliver. Otherwise, you risk to be dealing with these people. This is WannaCry. This ransomware only had 3 Bitcoin addresses. When I saw the duplicate screenshots, it was clear they are not going to be able to actually reference the payment against the extortion. And that was indeed WannaCry. There was no relationship. So you need to establish that. And then there's some smart people that say, hey, if you pay, they're going to come back and hack you again. Well, that's nonsense. You know, this six-pack says mythos and reality, myth and reality. The reality is the rest of the internet is waiting already. They will come back anyways.
But there are enough others, so sooner or later you will have to protect yourself. I know of several cases where the CEO or management, after they have paid, they said, oof, that's over, we can relax now, like boot the systems. Boot up the systems and we will start working again, and soon the outcry was big, and there is no way around protecting yourself. So better you do it before you're being hacked, but one thing is clear, they will come. So yeah, you are protecting yourself against more than one, and there is no competition in the sense, so it's not like you've been hacked by one, the others will back off. So the next thing is, so they give you the address of their Bitcoin wallet, and you say, okay, we will send you a Satoshi. In this moment, they will see how many money you have. So they will now know what your possibilities are. Maybe you only have 40 instead of 50. We all know the situation. So then they respond with, okay, we've gotten the money, and then you respond with, okay, then I will send the rest. Very important here, you only pay if you have a business case. Most of the time, you do not have one. Most of the time, the restoring the data is much faster than getting the data back. And what you should have learned from that improving your whole infrastructure and increasing the security, you have to do that anyway. So these are costs you have to invest anyway. So now you have paid, and then they respond with, they will send you the deletion log to prove that they have deleted all your data. This is what this looks like. So you can see the local language is set to Russian. So yeah, that means the directory has been deleted. They will send the message now, okay, we will now prepare the decryptor. Now you are a bit confused. It should be faster. After an hour, maybe you start asking what's going on, and they respond with, "I cannot reach the guy. Please hold the line." You start to sweat. It takes a while. But then finally they send you the decryptor file. Sorry, the guy was outside for a minute. So the lesson from this is you would never give the level 1 support any key to your system. In this example, they have given the Bitcoin wallet on their servers.
So they have all the files, they have the pen test reports here. And the example that you see here, the fact was that manual interaction was required, and they needed someone whose mobile phone number they didn't have. They only were using the chat. But to be honest, the hours until we had this decryptor were not so relaxing, even though I was fairly confident that they would actually do the deed. So Kai can now talk to you about what it looks like on the other side. We'll take another slight detour to the people on the other side. The interesting thing about this business model is, and we'll come back to level 1 support too, by the way, a lot of it is outsourced, as in any business. So the so-called affiliates. These are people that, for their own benefit, work with the ransomware families and share the income. Mostly about 70% to these guys, 25% for the people in the background. The renters, the landlords that we've talked about. This is Sébastien Vachon, a Canadian guy, by now convicted. He worked for Netwalker, another very large family, and he was the most zealous of these people. He went through many attacks and collected more than 1,000 Bitcoin this way, which was 27 million at the time. And you then wonder, what is this kind of guy? He didn't lead a bad life at all. This was the house he was living in before, near Ottawa. Nice little house, looks cozy. He was a computer technician at the University of Ottawa, but he was a guy, small criminal that wants a bit something more from life. He had been known to the police for drug dealing. He sold kilos of marijuana, small stuff. Yeah, this is him at the interview where he wasn't that well suited, didn't leave the great life. I watched him for a while through the pandemic. It was possible to follow all these court cases via the internet if you got the link from the authorities. This was a silent guy who just wanted a bit more from life, which he will now not get. And he is part of this collection because he is an example for the offenders making mistakes, which is important, I think. They are not infallible. The FBI was able, the Canadian FBI was able to, they actually rate this as high as terror, just to give you the kind of background. So the FBI cracked the server on which the network of people with their affiliates were talking. They need to communicate, and the affiliates have to prove that they have actually broken in somewhere, so they upload screenshots with the data they've copied. And in one of these screenshots, there were metadata. Screenshot 2.4.png contained metadata, including the name Sébastien Vachon. It happens to the best of us. Also, for communication with the server, he did use an anonymous email address, but he was too lazy to access the mails anonymously. He was just forwarding it to his private email address, which he used for his Amazon orders as well. So they had their address as well. It happens to the best of us. Right. So these people have to talk with each other, right? They need some infrastructure for communication, and this is the most popular place for attacking them. And he is actually being in a U.S. prison. He is now in a U.S. prison for 20 years, and then has to also finish his Canadian prison sentence. Right. These guys form gangs. They outsource. They are quite well organized. And they are quite very normal people. They're not gods, not super hackers. They're very normal people that make mistakes. And this kind of share of labor goes further. Here you see the worker, the lowest level, level 1 support. This is Alla Witte. Well, I do really pity her by now. A woman born in the Soviet Union. She was a programmer for radio technology, 57 years old by now. She's had some bad luck in life. She's widowed. She is involved with Scientology. Well, never mind. So she was kind of getting along, creating websites, living in Suriname at the time, programming for small businesses, some HTML and stuff. And then she received a job offer in 2017 from a Russian software company, as she calls it. We were able to talk with her. And there was an interview and a test online. She had to answer some technical questions. She passed, and she was offered a job. And they said 800 euros a month, and for that you will do some development for us. A small team was formed with 9 people, and they only knew each other via Java chats. And her job was, and this is where she started to consider whether this was the right thing to do, to program something like this. Websites with a user interface saying that your computer is infected. Sorry, another one of Jolly's inventions here, the German wordplay on the screen. So the company that she was working for was Conti, one of the largest and best organized ransomware gangs that the world has seen so far, or the biggest organized gang. And, well, Alla Witte was fairly innocent at the beginning. I think that is right, because she registered with Java using her real name. The server that they used for communication, that was leaked through a rogue member of the gang, so that her name came out quite quickly. And she was the first one that ran into problems. She was in Suriname, and at one point the Suriname police were at her door and said, "We're going to take you with us. Your visa has expired, and we'll send your computers back to Latvia, where she came from. You're no longer wanted here in Suriname." Right. The plane strangely had a stopover in Miami, where the FBI appeared and took her with them into a prison in Ohio, where she stayed for a long time, because the FBI thought, okay, we have the hacker queen now. She can tell us about Conti. This was before the leak, and they were hoping that she would be able to reveal it up. But she only knew the 9 people from her team. These were all freelancing kind of system admins who earned a bit on the side. She wasn't able to tell them much, which is why she remained there for 2 years without a trial, and nothing really happened. And then the Conti leak happened, and the world got to know about this gang. In the meantime, she has been released from the US prison, and now she's back in Latvia, in Riga. And most of the accusations have been dropped. Instead of one which is conspiracy for computer fraud, I really pity her. She's now a cleaner in Latvia. And you see the structure here of Conti. The lowest level here of these really well-organized gang is the workers. And we're talking about the professionals in the industry. They had everything. They had bosses that looked after renting offices, where these people worked from 8 to 3, and they were hired through forums for day jobs, and they were organized like any business. I'll show you 2 members from the management level, and they haven't all been identified yet. Stern, the head of the company, is only known through this handle. And as far as I know, no one knows who he is. So this is a sign that there can be quite capable criminals in this industry, but there's not too many of them. And if you have to deal with these people like Linus, you will never deal with these people. They will not get their hands dirty. It's the level 1 support. But it's also an example, well, these gangs do make mistakes. And, well, some of them are not really bad if you have bad luck. Another face, this is one of the managers, Maxim Galochkin. He has a few software companies, went bust with them. He's from Abakan in Russia. I think he's still living there, as far as his social media profiles say. And his responsibility was, well, they all have virus scanners. They got all the virus scanners that are available on the market, and he was responsible for testing whether their malware would go through there. So there is ER in evasion. So he also built the crypto locker that encrypts the data, or he was the leader of that team. He doesn't like COVID vaccination. He's a great fan of Putin and defender of the Ukraine, or the invasion of Ukraine. And he is a follower of some strange Indian guru, but ultimately a very normal guy. He was indicted in absentia because he was part of Conti. That was the accusation. Here's someone from the next lower level, team leader Oleg Kukharov from Toyati near Samara, 50 years old. I think he's interesting because he calls himself the reverse engineer malware analyst, and he's been around for a long time, it seems. Many of these people come into this from a legal background and are desperately looking for a job. Many don't speak English, and in an English-speaking environment, they won't find a job. You could work remotely, of course, but they only speak Russian, so they go to a Russian company. And Oleg sells 0 days in the darknet. At least I found some hints that he is active in that. And in 2014, he applied to hacking team, which has been a topic at another congress. This was a kind of they were creating spy software, an infamous kind of gang, and he was hiring people for Conti and leading them as a team leader. He likes barbecuing. He has a chihuahua named Simba. He has a small house. You can see him in the street here. Now, how serious these gangs are can be seen by the fact that the US are willing to pay 10 million for any information for the unknowns. That is a lot of money, and that means that this industry, until today, keeps the whole world at bay, and it's still, I think it's really strange. Conti still hasn't, Conti actually administered their own downfall. It wasn't the authorities that found them. So Linus is going to talk about now shortly about the lessons to learn.
Okay, so what I think is important is these people live relatively relaxed. If you think about it, you know, Conti or Black Hack, they had income of 100 million roundabout until they're detected. And that amount of money, the people at the top don't seem to have that kind of money. Specifically, the cost of business is high. The money, once it goes into their wallet, it only takes minutes until it's distributed over thousands of wallets. Earlier, this was done with Tornado Cash, now with others. Because he's in prison. These people have to be safe that there's people that are willing to pay 10 million rather than someone knowing who they are. So your circle of friends becomes very, very expensive. I think this business is not a way of life that is recommended. So to sum up, we know how the attackers proceed. Conti had a manual they had a problem getting new fresh blood. They had a guideline. This is where you click. This is where you go. This is how you become domain admin. Then you use Minicat, etc. It's all in the manual. The attackers. So you need a recovery concept until we suck dry this rust. It doesn't work. So if you are in the situation where you don't want to pay, tell them you're not going to be paying. The attackers will want to. They generate pressure. Don't buckle into the pressure. Keep playing for time. Keep playing for time. Reflect the pressure back on them. They have a reputation to defend. It's easier for them to hack the next one than to hack yourself again. That doesn't mean that others aren't waiting to hack you, so please do defend against hackers. The list of stolen files is for free. Take that. You're going to need that anyways. You will have high costs. Even when you pay. You need to be sure you have a business case to pay. They know that the longer you don't pay, the less likely you are to pay. That's why the time pressure. And lastly, the attackers aren't invincible. You are going to need a recovery concept now. Talking about invincible, my colleague Tobias had a talk yesterday with the title "Unlocked Recovery Files Taken Hostage by Ransomware." So this talk is part of a series of talks. It started with disclosure, hack and back at the camp. It had a climax with the unlocked with decryptors, Blackbuster from Tobias, and it finds its end with the Hackback Edition by Kai Biermann and myself. And so we hope that everything has been said now. Thank you very much.
Wunderbar.
Thank you very much.
Ja, vielen Dank an Linus und Kai.
Thank you very much to Linus and Kai.
Kannst wegmachen, ja.